We'd like to call the work session to order. Trustee Newman has not arrived yet, and Mr. Winters is not here either yet. The first item on the agenda is the election update.
I'm going to just really quickly see if I can screen share since Lisa stepped out.
While we're waiting for that, there's a couple items that were just distributed for the board's information. One of them was a letter from the 3 full-time officials that were sent to the homeowners out in Crystal Pond. And there was an error on there, and our residents actually caught the error, so we were very thankful for that. And the Stan's office reprinted a tax bill minus the cameras because the cameras had not been installed. So there's actually possibly 4 years that are involved with, so it was decided that refund this year immediately, and we'll work with the accounting department and issue other refunds by March of next year. So the letter, we sent a letter out with the tax bill to explain it so that people would know. And Stan, do you have anything?
The tax bill went out Friday. That's why you have the letter, so that if you get called by residents in that Crystal Ponds area, we started getting calls today, and they were happy to know that it wasn't an increase, but actually getting money back. So
we apologize for any errors, and we'll make it right. We will make it right. Heather is still, are you still looking?
I'm just having technical difficulties, but basically what I was wanting to share with you guys tonight is just an overview of all the different public acts that have happened as a result of a combination of the legislature or Prop 2. The first one, as everyone here I think is aware of now, is that they've moved our presidential primary date to February 27th, which only moves the election back a couple weeks, but you wouldn't believe the, just like the trickle-down effects that's had on our day-to-day working. Lisa, I can't connect. I don't know why it won't let me cast. The other one is that anyone who fills out a UOCAVA ballot, so an overseas voters ballot, they have a 6-day grace period as long as it's postmarked by Election Day, and they have to be received by the 7th day after Election Day, and that is a pretty significant change. I don't think that you guys will receive questions about this necessarily when you're out at meetings or anything like that.
What did you call that? There was an acronym?
It's UOCAVA, UOCAVA.
UOCAVA, okay.
And there are overseas voter ballots. The other one was a Senate bill that was finalized. It finalized the early voting language that we passed in Prop 2. We've talked about that one the most here at the board level, but just to refresh everyone and for anyone here, that allows the state to hold 9 consecutive days of early voting that is in person and looks very much like an election day precinct where you'd actually place your ballot into a tabulator. There was a bill that also came out of Prop 2 for prepaid postage return. So anything that gets returned back to us here at the township, we've actually always provided this for our residents for as long as I know. But the state will actually reimburse us for anything that comes back for postage. Brenda, did they do that one? Did you have prepaid postage?
I actually have been doing that when I was clerk.
Okay, I thought we'd been doing it for that long,
but it's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think, other municipalities didn't do that, so it helps us for some cost savings, and it encourages others to do that. There was another act prohibiting disclosure of results before 8 p.m., and they actually moved that up to a felony charge just to help prevent, election manipulation, conspiracies, and whatnot. There's a bill that offers residents an actual right to know if their applications were received or whatnot. I think, we're on the last one here. So that allows them to know if their AV application has been received or whatnot, which is really helpful. Like a lot of times people will call and just want to make sure that the mail actually made it here. So I think that will help our residents a lot. You can go to the next one, Lise. This one is our drop boxes. I think I shared this before, but we actually have 2 new drop boxes for a total of 4 now. 5 really, if you count the one here inside the lobby. But one of our drop boxes is at the community center. The other one is at the Hewitt Road Fire Station. The next one is outside of the Civic Center here. And lastly, the Ford Boulevard Fire Station. So anytime residents can use those for both applications or ballots. We did get new ballots from the state, ballot boxes from the state. They're really great, but we kind of even joked a little bit about in the office. They're like extra super secure. They take 2 different types of like 8-point keys to open, and they're really pretty. So on the way out, or if you're by one of those, check them out. The next one is just clarifying the permanent voter list. So this again came out of Prop 2, but we're now going to have a permanent ballot list. So in the past, we just had a permanent AV application list, like you were an absentee voter list. That's, if you hear me say AV, that's what that means, absentee voter. And so there was a list for that. Now there's actually going to be a permanent ballot list. So a list that comes and you never ever have to fill out an application again. The change in that process is very difficult for us to just be comfortable with. Change is really hard. So that's a difference. There's a lot of clerks that are advocating to still have a permanent absentee voter list for places that have like a lot of college students. Like it doesn't always make sense to send their ballot directly, and the post office doesn't forward ballots automatically. So there could be some changes to that in the next year. But in the near future, from what we have now, we will be getting rid of our permanent AV list, and there will only be a permanent ballot list or people who do not choose to receive that. The next one was just clarifying election IDs. It allows you to use like school IDs, or a lot of people, especially in like northern Michigan, will have concealed carry license that actually have a picture that are printed. And so they'll be able to use those to check the like photo identification thing that's required. You can go to the next one, Lise. The next one is the precinct size, which we'll talk a little bit later about how it's impacted our township. There was an original bill that would have allowed us to change, but the legislature didn't enact it immediately. So then they passed a second bill to help us do that, which was kind of added just to the like time crunch of everything. But we'll talk about precinct size a little bit later, as our election commission here, as we shared last time, has voted to consolidate our precincts. Our permanent mail voter list, that just kind of goes back to that permanent ballot list or permanent AV list. And the last one here, challenge ballots, changes the way that they're processed on election day. So now on election day, the majority of folks that come in to the clerk's office, when they vote, they do get to vote, but their process is a challenge ballot, which just takes a little bit longer for staff to do. They usually put the white tape over it, and we're not going to have to do that anymore. So that's the difference for that. All right, next one, Lise, is rides to the polls. It struck the prohibition on individuals hiring transportation to polling locations for themselves or others. It used to be a misdemeanor penalty to do that, which I didn't know that before. The next one wouldn't be enacted until 2025, which is actually, I think, a good thing, because I don't know that the state or QVF can handle any more changes at this point, but it would allow for electronic return of military ballots. And that wouldn't happen until September of 2025, so we've got some time for that. The next one was just allowing reasonable steps to make ballots and other election materials more accessible to people who either are not very proficient in reading the English language and or allow them election material in other languages. The next one, Lise, is, or you got it, there's, in the past, political action committees used to be able to take direct deductions from payrolls, and that changed, and this bill reversed it back so that you could do automatic payroll deductions for your PACs, like for unions or any other PAC that you might be a part of. The next one actually allowed us to do election inspector apps by electronic means, which, to be really honest, I didn't know wasn't allowed either. We do ours on paper, and we require people to come in and take photocopies of their identifications, and they have to fill out some stuff with HR. So it really, logistically, to me, doesn't make sense for us, but for other people it might. The next one is just protecting election workers from harassment or any other type of intimidation on election day. The next one is really just relevant to county clerks. There's some bill that had contradictory language where the county clerk couldn't participate in an audit because they were a part of some other legislative body from the party. That doesn't really impact us here at all. The next one was just a process change in allowing people to question or challenge the outcomes of elections. Again, not super relevant to what we do here in Ypsi Township, but just wanted to put all of them in for you guys. Let's see. I think I flipped a page. The last one is this does impact us a lot here. Voters who decide to fill out their registrations online could use their last 4 digits of their social security number if they didn't provide a address or location, and so this just clarifies and allows them to do that now online. So it makes it easier for voters to register online. The next one, again, is about registration. So it offers pre-registration for 16-year-olds, or all the way down to 16-year-olds for them to become pre-registered to vote. So like if you're a 16-year-old and you're going to, get your driver's license, this would allow you to pre-register so that you're automatically registered later. The next one, again, was Prop 2 cleanup, which there was a boatload of things that were cleaned up in the same legislative session. So those were good. And the next one had to do with driver's license permits and QVF as well, becoming registered to vote. The next one was actually, it's more for campaign ads and stuff in our state. So if you use some sort of automated intelligence to mimic the voice of someone else or a picture of someone else, you have to disclose that on the piece. I imagine that we'll see this more on when people get commercials on the TV. I think that we'll see that. I'm sure it's fine, super fine, tiny print at the bottom, but they do have to disclose that. The next one was just allowing our state to become more up to date with our federal laws that are in place. The next one is just refining the requirements to request an absentee ballot. The next one was just a change to campaign finance And I think the next page should be us. Is the next one us? One more over, Lise. So the main changes in Ypsilanti Township, that was kind of a big thing. Hopefully some of you found it interesting. But there was a lot of changes at our state level that happened with elections this year. So the main ones here, early voting, you've heard us talk about that a lot. It'll be open for 9 consecutive days. Our drop boxes that we touched base on 2, and that will have 4. And then our precinct changes, which is kind of the biggest one that most recently happened. Our township previously had 19 locations at 19 precincts at 14 locations. And now with our ability to consolidate precincts to have a bigger number of in-person voters, we're able to have 11 precincts in 10 locations. And then if you switch over one more slide, Lise, this is the change. I know it looks a little busy when you're seeing them on this big screen, but the biggest things are precinct 1 absolutely stayed the same. The old precinct 2 and 3 on the left side, if you see the blue and orange in the top left corner, those are now precinct 4. It also brought over Roundtree, area condominiums and apartments. And so there used to be a little green space, and they'd have to travel all the way over here to come vote at the Moose. And so now they're all going to be together at the Washtenaw Golf Club, or what you might hear me also refer to as the polo fields, because I can't get it out of my head. Precinct 2 was the old precinct 4. No change in the boundary there, but they will be voting at the community center now. Previously, they voted at Victorious Life, and they were a great congregation to work with. Pastor Weaver was wonderful, always very helpful. But that precinct was right across the street from a Superior Township precinct, and so caused a lot of voter confusion. And I'd actually even got complaints from a Democratic challenger in the governor's race over that. So that helps them move down to the community center. And 5 and 6, old 5 and 6 are now one precinct at the community center, so no changes for them there. Precinct 7 used to vote at the fire station, and they'll now be joining the voters at Calvary Baptist Church on Ecorse, so less than a mile away for their change. The parking lot at the fire station wasn't really conducive to voters. If it was really busy, there might not be spots to park, and just better logistics at the other location. Old precincts 9 and 10, which are like on the lake there, they're orange and blue. They're now one precinct in orange, and those will stay. They both previously were and will both still remain at Erickson Elementary. Old precincts 11 and 12, those are all Van Buren Township, or Van Buren Public Schools. I have gotten a lot of questions in the past about, why the split at Tyler Road, and that really is the primary reason, just to keep that one school district voting together with the same ballot. School districts can put on millages and other initiatives on the ballot, so it really helps and makes sense logistically. So they'll stay at the same location. The old precincts 14 stays at the same location here at the Civic Center. Part of 13 will join part of 15, and they will come here for the new 6, which is the darker blue in the middle. And then Textile and Merritt Roads, followed by Munger and Tuttle Hill, are sort of the boundary lines for the other precincts. This also allowed us to, we will no longer be using Victorious Life, the Moose Lodge, which a lot of voters, really just didn't enjoy and had a lot of concerns about. So it gets us out of those 2 places. We won't be at the fire station, and we will be off of the dirt road. We used to be on a dirt road down at the southern part of Tuttle Hill at the Evangelical Friends Church. And again, they were wonderful people to work with. We loved them, very helpful, but a lot of voters didn't want to drive down a dirt road to get to where they were going to vote. So that is it. If anyone, I think that was the last slide, right, Lisa? Any questions? I know that was kind of a lot, and maybe you didn't want to hear it all, but I promised it. So
I have one. Heather, who mails out the changes of the precinct? Does the township, and will they, the ones that are closed, how you get the little card, will indicate what precinct you're at.
Yes, so anyone who is moving a physical location of where they voted, their mailers are already in progress to be sent to them, if not sent today. And then everyone will also receive a new voter ID card, and on the side, it's going to say something like, look at your precinct changes or for location changes, just in case those people miss their letters. And the last piece, which is sort of like a bonus piece, is that we're required to send out a mailer for early voting. And on that mailer, I'm having, just a few informational meetings. So like if people come to those, hopefully we can touch base on that. But for the people who specifically move, they will receive a letter and a new voter ID card.
And also, are you sending some indication for people who does absentee ballots that they no longer have to do another absentee ballot? Or how is that going to work?
So we've
And
actually.
you have to come back in to get, well, usually you send it out if you want to do absentee ballot.
Yeah, so
So will that indication be on the absentee ballot once you request, you no longer have to request again?
we've had one election since the change, and that was just for Lincoln Consolidated Schools, so a smaller, portion of our precincts and stuff. But that application had a box, and you had to check that box that said, I would like to be added to that permanent ballot list. And once they do that, they never have to in theory, they never have to fill out an application again.
That's the first time it actually said that in that box.
Yep. And some people, I think, missed it, like and so the people that missed it or chose not to do it, for now, they will still continue to receive an application. And those applications will still have a box that says, do you want to be added to the permanent ballot list? I will just add the one thing that I didn't really talk about here is anyone who was on a permanent ballot list from that Lincoln Consolidated Schools millage, they will get what's called, anyone on the absentee voter ballot list will get this. But specifically for those folks, they will have what Brenda talked about a couple times and what I've talked about is the ballot selection form. So even if you're on this permanent ballot list, you still have to tell the clerk's office if you want a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot, or if you just want a proposal ballot. So their form for that looks a little bit different. Everyone else on the permanent absentee list will still get an application with both that selection, letting them pick that, but also a little box that says, I want to be on the permanent ballot list. I could probably find you a proof in my, an example of what that might
So
look
are
like.
you saying that they will have to choose a particular party? Wow,
Yeah.
isn't that complicated?
Well, we do it every 4 years, and it's like,
Has it
people
been
always
like
get
that?
upset about it.
So,
Yeah.
well, I know you have to do that primaries, you can't switch back and forth. But I guess I'm thinking a whole different thing, that you're saying that you had to pick a particular party to get an absentee ballot, a certain type of
To get a ballot, yeah, even at the polls, like for just the presidential primary. Yeah, just in the presidential primary, so not in August, not in November, only the presidential primary. Even if I went to the poll to vote, I'd have to, do all this stuff, talk to the poll workers, and then I would have to tell them what ballot I wanted to fill out. I know, it feels really intrusive, I agree with you, and but that's what we do.
And that's a Democratic and Republican choice, like they determine those, right? Yes, they
Yeah.
did.
And,
It used to be by like a caucus. There used to be old caucuses that you could go to and people would stand up and give speeches on why you should vote.
And some states don't do it that way.
No, right. But here they do. I need just a little bit more clarity. Are you finished, Trustee Peterson? Are there any other trustees that have a question?
I didn't have a question, just a request. Good presentation, a lot of info. Can we put this on the website under the meeting minutes so that we can look at it and residents can see?
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Newman. Oh, okay. I like information, so I appreciate it very much. On the drop boxes,
Yes.
How often are we required as a community to check them?
Every day that we're working and open.
Throughout the entire year?
They have to be available for 60 or 45 days before the election.
Okay, so it goes
So
coincides.
from there, but then really all the way, we'll check them all the way through that 7-day grace period afterwards, just, just in case a Uokava ballot got postmarked and then someone threw in the drop,
Yeah.
just to make sure. And we really have always kind of checked our drop boxes afterwards. You'd be surprised how many people still turn them in, which I guess is good, just to have the.
They used to put a lot of township, other information in there for taxes and stuff.
Our new drop boxes, not only are they super secure with weird 2 keys, but they also have a thing that locks on the front, so you won't be able to put anything in it if it's not election time.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And then we also have cameras on it, right?
We are,
In the process,
yep.
as required by state law. On the permanent ballot list, so they went from absentee voter list, but it sounds like you still have an absentee voter list that you're maintaining absentee voter and a permanent voter, which, if I understand what you said, will be sent, once they sign up, fill out the form, then they will automatically be sent a ballot.
Yes. The only thing I'll add is that in the future, it is the intent to eliminate the absentee voter list and only have a permanent ballot list. Right, and so in Prop 2, it gave us like a constitutional right that we only have to do one application for life in our state.
And we used to have that, actually. There used to be it was permanent absentee, but once you signed up, you automatically
Got an application.
got an application.
So this will be a ballot. And so, anyways, a lot of clerks are really advocating that we still maintain that list that would still send an application automatically and not the ballot. For, especially relevant in like college towns where people are moving a lot.
Yeah, that was-
because the post office won't auto forward your ballots. They'll get returned to us.
So I wonder if you're a snowbird and you go south for the Florida, or wherever, and the ballot, how do you notify? Is there a space to notify?
So it's really important for those residents actually to make sure that their mailing address is on file with the clerk's office so that we can put that in QVF. So then when we're printing out ballots, it will give us two
Choices?
it will give us 2 labels, one that we put on the outer envelope to, St. Pete, Florida, and then one on the return envelope that will have their Hunter Ave address here in the township. But if they don't have that mailing address updated with the clerk's office, it will,
How do they do that? Is that on the application?
it used to be on the application.
Right,
at
it
the
did,
bottom.
yeah.
But now because they're not going to get an application if they're on the ballot list,
Right.
so they need to make sure that that is
Just was
updated. And I will say that a lot of residents who we have here who do Snowbird
Mm-hmm.
are really good about like just calling to make sure that it's going to the right place.
But is that enough? Does it have to be written?
Yeah, well, that's why I think, not just the college people, but if you still had a permanent application list, that could at least make it to them. Because the post office will forward that on to wherever, but the ballots, they can't. So that is a logistics thing that I don't think everyone's ironed out yet.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. That's just more of a question because I do know a lot of people go out of here for the winter. And then on the school ID, it was added concealed carry permit.
Yes. here,
That was
let
one
me
thing
go back
that was
to the-
added. I was just trying to,
The concealed carry one, I actually learned about at a Bureau of Elections.
so that's enough to vote? 'Cause there's-
No, it just satisfies the photo ID portion of
Okay.
what you would need to show. You'd still have to show something that, there's a separate list to show proof of residency. That's just for the photo identification.
Okay. And there's also, if you don't have photo ID,
Yeah, as long as you're registered to vote, you don't even ever, just as a good education piece, you do not have to, like, if you don't have a license, you don't have to have one to go vote at the polls. You can sign an affidavit that says, I am who I am, and still get your ballot and vote accordingly.
And is that a challenge ballot still, or is that,
No.
oh, okay.
And the challenge ballot piece changed a little bit too. Like even I was saying in the office, how we process those is going to be different.
Okay. The other question, let me see. This. Okay. Online voters, does that go to the Secretary of State or does that come directly to local government?
Are you referring to the ones for the overseas military ballot? The
Voter
military ballot?
online voters, I thought that was voter registration.
So it's there was one that I talked about that was the electronic return of military ballots.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen until
2025.
2025.
I'm talking.
And
I'm
I would
talking.
imagine that it might come here to us still.
What about the online, like if you register to vote online?
If you register to vote online, it puts you into what's called our inbox.
That does.
On QVF, and so we would receive it in there.
So nothing goes through the Secretary of State like you do when you get your driver's license and all
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Unless they do, a voter registration drive or something like that.
So
But if not, those forms get sent to us.
Yeah.
Like at the county, actually, every time there's a big election, we'll be sent huge manila envelopes, like several times of voter registration. So, and I think different, interest groups will go out and register people to vote and then turn them in there as like, one big house, and then they disseminate them out to us. But if we have them, we have to register them.
Okay. And so I didn't understand the AI exactly, but what I heard you say is that people can't use pictures unless they say it's AI or voice.
So like if I took my voice and I wanted to make it sound like you and use some tool to do that, I would just have to disclose on my campaign ad that I did that. Yeah, that's a bill that was in there. I just wanted to share.
No, I appreciate
So
it, yeah.
like an example is if someone wanted to do some AI thing with President Biden's voice, they would have to just put at the bottom, like, some disclosure about it.
And you went through quickly the precinct stuff, so I didn't catch it all. And I was trying to understand, but I think the state law changed. They used to allow 2,999, like you talked about before, voters per precinct, and they increased that to 4,999.
The original bill was 4,999, and the one that was implemented effective immediately was 5,000. I think they had to just change something about it, other than just make it effective immediately. But none of our precinct sizes even come close to that, just because we still want to allow space for growth. So, if something else develops, we wouldn't have to change right away.
So we used to have 19 precincts. We will have 14 locations.
14 precincts. Oh, sorry, yes. 19, we used to have 19 precincts in 14 locations, and now we will have 11
and
precincts in 10
locations. So that will reduce cost and need for...
Yeah, and it definitely helps logistically with costs and need, not only for ballot printing, for staff time, for poll worker time.
Yeah.
But it also helps, if anyone has concerns about security of elections, like there's fewer places where we have things like ballots and people. It also allows us to have less places to sort of like navigate to on election day to help troubleshoot, or if there's some disorderly person there, we're able to sort of get there a little more timely with having less locations.
Yeah, I do think it's more efficient and changing the ones the election commission. Now, we don't have to vote on any of that, right?
Correct.
As a board, but the election commission did vote on it. So, yeah, I'd like to, that's a lot of changes for precincts, but I do think it would, I think it would be better.
Yeah, we have been in the process still. I know I shared this with our election commission members. But there's a lot of like back-end work that comes with changing all of that. And so today we were notified that like our precinct changes were updated. And so I went through our old street index alphabetically because that's how they wanted it. It was so hard to do. But I went through that and then I verified the ones that they changed. And I actually did find a few things that didn't get put in correctly. And so I've addressed those and we're just waiting to hear back. But we're trying to take as much care as we can to make sure everything gets translated on the back end through QVF so that everything's accurate.
Good. It's a lot of changes, and I like Van Buren being in one. So West Willow used to be, are they still voting? The Belleville side, are they still voting?
At Rawsonville.
Okay, that's what I couldn't.
Yeah.
I was trying to-
I know, they're really small. So our polling locations are, let me just pull it up, because I'm going to get the names of the churches wrong.
Country Club. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
After we redid the numbers, it's a little bit more than that, but it's still a significantly small number of our people. And as I explained to the election commission, like every day our voters update, and so, you know, Angie could do the numbers on Monday and they'd be different by Wednesday. Yeah, I would say it's probably more around 7. I think that part of that was that we didn't consider like all of old precinct 4 is all now new precinct 2. And they're the same precinct, but they're moving, you know.
So if you show up, most people show up to the location. Maybe they're go to a different number, but they'll show up to the same place.
Yes,
That
and
helps us
decision.
allow them to change, because as long as people are going to the location they're used to going to, most people will have that situation. There might be different, but people who would show up and then be told they have to somewhere else, it's still a lot.
Yeah.
It's not.
The other thing I wanted to add, Debbie, that reminded me is that, so these other precincts that we're no longer going to be using, I've also asked to have like a big sign. We kind of talked about having a big like plastic sign that says, you know, your precinct has changed, go to either this location and or call. And I've asked to have that not just for the February one, but also for August and November of all those locations. And I'm sure that, I haven't heard back from them yet, but I'm sure that they'll be more than willing to do that because, you know, you don't want a bunch of voters coming in to say, where do I vote? So having the sign will help our voters and just provide some clarity. So thank you for reminding me that. The locations are, for Precinct 1, the Free Methodist Church, which is on Packard Road.
No change, right?
Yep, no change at all for them. They have a separate county commissioner. It's only one of our county commissioners that is separate. It is Commissioner Sanders. The second one is Ypsilanti Township Community Center, and that is true for precincts 2 and 3. So that's the community center on Clark Road.
And that used to be, I think, 4 and 5?
5 and 6.
5 and 6. And you added, we eliminated Victorious Life and moved them over there?
Yep, and then we combined 5 and 6.
Okay.
So 5 and 6 also don't have any changes to their location. Like their precinct number is different, but most people don't know their precinct number, and it doesn't impact their ability to go vote. So keeping 5 and 6 was together at the community center was a really great change. Precinct 4 is the Washtenaw Golf Club, and that used to be 2 and 3 together. So those voters, with the exception of Roundtree, also have not changed locations. And then 5 is at Calvary Baptist Church. And that was the old 8 and 11, I believe. And so now they're 5, and any voter who is at the fire station will just have to drive less than a mile away to go to Calvary that has a bigger parking lot, a bigger space inside for more voting booths.
I thought the old fire station was Thurston area, no?
Yeah, it was.
But it's, so you're moving,
Anyone who is in that side of it who voted, this was split into 2.
in Harris, what's the street?
It used to split at Harris, I think. And so anyone east of Harris would have voted at the fire station, and anyone west of it would vote at Calvary. And so they'll be together. And that's at Calvary Baptist Church on Ecorse Road. Number 6 comes down to like part of the old 15, part of the old 13, and all of precinct 14. So again, all of precinct 14 does not move locations.
Okay.
Part of 13 does come over here, and then part of 15, and those were both at the Moose before. The other part of 13, I'm just going to skip numbers, or I won't skip numbers, I take it back. I will stay in line for you guys. Yep, that was 6, and they'll be here at the Civic Center. Number 7 is old precincts 9 and 10, and none of those voters move locations either. And I just want to clarify, if you don't move locations, they'll still receive a new voter ID card because their precinct number has changed.
And that's Erickson.
Yes, at Erickson. And then precinct 8 was the old 11 and 12. Again, that's Van Buren Public School District, and they will stay and have been at Rawsonville Elementary, so they also do not move locations. Precinct number 9 was part of the old 15, part of the old 18, and all of 17. So all of precinct 17 does not change locations. They stay the same. And just the but the few voters from precinct 15 and then a small section of precinct 18 will move locations. And they're just moving locations from one church to the one next door. And so
And this is where?
they vote at Southside Baptist Church on Textile. And then 10 is right below that. And so the majority of 10 used to be the precinct 18. So the majority of those voters are also not moving locations. And they will vote at Pineview Church on Textile Road. And then the last one is precinct 20. The majority of the voters in this district also stay in the same location, with the exception of the old precinct 17 cross Textile Road into Creek Side. I can't. Anyways, they crossed over Textile, and so that small section of voters there, and then anything on here on River Drive that is east of Tuttle Hill will be joined with precinct 11. And again, the voters who have always been in that district will stay in the same spot, and that is at the Ypsilanti District Library.
And all of this information can be found on the website?
All of this this is on,
They'll post it. Stan asked to be, like, right, you'll post it as part
I
of the
think
work
that
session?
this is already posted on the
But that's what you asked.
Election Commission site. Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The presentation is what you mean, yes. But this actual map and is posted, And I also added some updates to the election page. So if you guys
Okay.
want to peek at that, I heard feedback from our last, when we had a Lincoln Consolidated Schools election, just people who live in Ipsy District who were, confused or upset about why they didn't get a ballot or an opportunity to vote. And, just reflection helped me notice like other municipalities put more stuff on their website. And so if you have a moment, check out the election page and give any feedback you have.
One more time, 7, where is that location?
Well, I got to look at the old numbers because I can't get them straight in my head. Hold on just a second. I just had it up. Where did I just had it up?
Erickson?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. 6 and then 7 over. So in our office, it's so hard to change the numbers in our head. So I'm sure for like 12 years, I'll still be saying.
And how about 8? That's the only 2 I missed.
And 8 is at Rawsonville.
Rawson.
9 is at Southside.
I
10
got
is
that.
at Pine Beach.
I've said this before, I don't know what we can do, maybe we can do something, I'm not sure, but people voting here in the steep stairs, well, I know people have fallen, so I don't know what we can do to help with that, maybe put rails, I don't know.
Only a thing after thinking about it last time that we could do differently, and it doesn't change the grade or anything, but just putting that, like tape you can use in gyms that doesn't mess up the carpet or the floor, and just taping the edges of our stairs to just bring like visual awareness to it also. We always have some voting booths like along the top so you don't have to come down the stairs, but even I've like almost tripped down these stairs because they're like wider or longer than you think, so.
So there will be voting booths in this
Right.
civic center down, oh, wow.
Yeah, we always have some big booths down here, and then we have them up along the top so that people who aren't able to do the stairs can vote here still. Or we could ask for a grant from the state.
And they have to have voting there for absentee, so that's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Trustee Hunter?
Heather, I just want to say thank you for this presentation. And if you gave this during your overview, I apologize because I missed it, but will this information be outside of the website? How will this information reach voters?
So which part? So we're
Like in terms like the precinct changes and all that?
if anyone's moving locations, they're going to be sent a letter that says this is your new location. And they're also going to receive a new voter ID card. In addition to that, it's kind of like not a free opportunity, but we have to mail everyone about early voting. And so on that card, I'm putting a couple of information dates for people to come. And so hopefully if everyone missed both their letter and their card, that's another opportunity to like maybe catch
Sure.
some folks.
Cool. Thank you.
I did have one more
Yeah.
question. Is this the first time, Heather, that we done voting by mail?
No, we've done absentee ballots. People sometimes call that vote by mail, but you could come into the clerk's office any day before the election and get the same thing, an absentee ballot. And I like to simplify it, say an absentee ballot just means you're not at the polling location on election day.
Okay, I understand absentee ballot, but I guess I'm thinking that you can get online and cast your vote.
No, so I just want to clarify. I wanted to put in there because.
I've never heard of that.
So, people can be actually sent ballots right now if they're overseas in the military. But what that is saying is that their actual return will come back electronically. Right now, they cannot send it back electronically. They still have to go through their means to return it by mail.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that,
Or-
it's not saying what I'm thinking it's saying.
No.
That you can actually now go online,
No.
cast a vote by just,
That is not.
that's not what it's
No.
saying. We're
And I-
referring to absentee ballots.
Yeah, and I, just
Okay.
thinking about what that might look like the legislature still has almost over 2 years to do it. But I've actually been able to participate in like my local union election where there's like dual authentication twice to make sure that you are who you say you are, and then submit that online. Now, I'm not suggesting that our federal elections go that way, but, you know, they've got some ideas that I'm sure they're working with. So that, again, will be September of 2025 if they don't extend it. Thank you. Sorry to take up so much time.
Is this called precinct consolidation or just, what's it called? Like,
You're revising the boundaries of your precinct.
okay.
Precinct consolidation is what I say a lot, because
But I mean, legally, is it revising your boundary?
your boundary.
Yeah.
Precinct boundary change, revision.
Any other questions or comments? We're going to go right to the agenda. Where's John for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan? Is the
I know that
consultant here?
Liz from Beckett and Rader will be here around 6:45.
So not at the work session, at the
Yes.
regular meeting? So, I know we have our resolution in here. I do have quite a bit of questions or changes, and I don't know if other board members do, but as long as we have the public hearing and don't take action, that's still okay. I believe it is. I talked to John. I think he said we had to do it by February, right?
Yeah, February is, I believe it needs to be submitted at the end of February, but we certainly could vote on it in January or even the first. Yeah.
Okay. Well, since the consultant's not here.
I could look for the date. I'm sure I probably have it somewhere in here.
Board members, are you okay with having the public hearing and then voting on it at the next meeting? Can you turn on your microphone, please?
My concern is that I don't recall seeing this until this packet, and it's a lot, and I don't feel so if that's okay, I don't feel comfortable approving it without going through it really, really carefully, because just I don't want to say I looked through, I was able to do the first 30 pages or more, and there's stuff that I had questions about and things that we could probably clarify tonight, because I'm going to need that when I start to read further into it. So that was my concern. And then I didn't know, has the Park Commission already approved it? So they've already approved it as is, and then it comes, because that's what I was.
The answer was yes.
So the answer is yes. And so they approve it, and then it comes to us for the final approval. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, so at the November 6th meeting, the Park Commission did have the chance to ask questions to Beckett and Rader, and they asked the questions and then forward to the Board of Trustees. On November 7th, I sent an email to everybody just with a copy of it to hopefully give you plenty of time before tonight. But luckily, the formal upload of the document has to be by February 1st. So if there are questions after tonight, there is time to make changes, and if not adopted tonight, adopt at the January 16th meeting. So we do still have time. We wanted to be early just in case that was the case.
And then if we suggest changes, because it's kind of like a dual body relationship, does it go back to the Park Commission? Like, how does that process work? Because if we were to suggest something, like we're co-bodies of government, so we just don't override them. I guess I don't know how that works. I mean, I know that I sat on the Park Commission for a really long time. So if there's some kind of a disagreement about what something's in there, like how do we resolve that?
Yeah, I guess I'd be curious what the disagreement would be. And of course, Liz will be here to be here for the public hearing and to have those questions for the particulars of the document. As far as going back to the Park Commission meeting, there is, again, time for that as well, because the first meeting in January will be before the board meeting.
On the 15th.
So they can recommend for it to go to the board at that meeting, if that's what the board desires. And I do, conveniently, I went to go print some of these. Just the document for what she submitted is up on the screen above you and was in the packet, but this is something she sent just as a kind of quick piece of just what she was going to talk about tonight and kind of the steps for everything.
So is this the first time we've used this organization for this process?
Yes. John, when is the meeting for Park Commission? Well, in January, I mean, like. Oh, okay, right, after the holiday then.
I know with the planning commission, they had held the public hearing, so when we changed it here, I think it was sent back to them.
Yeah, go back to them.
I believe, but this time we're actually having the public hearing for the park commission. I don't know if that makes any difference.
We did, me and John were like, is this okay? And we verified that the last time we did this plan, Carlisle Wortman did it for us, and we held the public hearing. We didn't vote on it at the same time. We did we heard the public hearing, and then I think that very next meeting we voted on it. It may have been a little bit earlier. It was around the same time.
It was I want to say the day was January 15th. Don't necessarily quote me on that, but yeah, the 2019 meeting, is that correct? The correct
Yeah,
year, or
that sounds
2018
right.
meeting? But anyways, I did go back and confirm that we did it at the first meeting in January for an adoption before February 1st.
Yeah, my only point, and I'm not sure if it's 100% correct with that, if it's anything like the Parks and Rec, the Planning Commission master plan, the Planning Commission actually held the public hearing. So I don't know if that makes it different for referring it back or not. I didn't know. But if you have time to send it back, that's great.
Just for clarity, I guess, would we, if we wanted to make changes, would we want it to go back to Park Commission? I think what I'm thinking is yes, but
Is it required? That's what I did.
And then I wonder just how, if there was a disagreement, like I sit on the Park Commission for over 20 years, I'm never aware of a situation where there might be a disagreement, but I'm like, how would we reconcile that? I don't know, I'm just talking in my head. So do you want to, there's just a couple things that I'm wondering about. I could go if people are, like big general things, not anything. I mean, there's some other stuff that I was going through that I was.
Sure. When it comes to that process, I would, maybe make the request that if we could wait till Liz was here, because there are going to be some things that she might have the expertise on that I do not.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer what I can, but I don't want to speak
Okay.
for their company.
Okay.
I do want to say they had 915 responses, which was a really high response, and this is just a 5-year update, which is different than the major one that we did. But it's interesting information, like presented totally different, and I liked it. I just have some questions about.
Yeah, they had a unique way to gather data on the park usage using cell phone, again, data, kind of seeing the hot times when folks were at the parks, and just the way of going about it was very unique to what the other companies presented. So they've been great through the process.
That was one of the questions. I said, how do you know, what socioeconomic background people had that that went to the park? And that was one of my questions, because they're very specific numbers, and I didn't know how you obtained that information. So it was based on cell phone?
That's what they use, at least for the hot times of when the park usage was, like the most busy times.
But
And
how did they drill down on the demographics? That's what I was fascinated by it.
yeah, not with the cell phone data, but I think maybe with a combination of getting the responses primarily was probably where they got the most socioeconomic responses.
Madam Chair, I'll just add that I think maybe with some of that cell phone data, they were better able to gear the times that they had. They had two different public, I guess they weren't public hearings, but like public info meetings. One was at the community center that we actually had 2 different times. The one I attended wasn't very
yeah.
well attended, but the one outside at North Bay Park, like they talked to like such a good number of people at that meeting who just happened to be at the park, which I think helped capture like more of a true like unique sample of who uses the parks. And I thought their approach to that was really interesting. And one of the staff people, I think Rowan is his name, he was excellent. Like he would go up and talk to anyone who was like walking by with their dogs or with their kids, just to say, hey, do you have a second to come do these little example boards? So I really appreciated like their engagement and how they did it. But
Yeah.
So the plan is for 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? I guess maybe, so are you able to explain the categories at the end where they're kind of prioritizing things?
Yeah, I can do my best at that, depending on which ones you're referring to.
So it's in the actual plan itself. I printed out everything I left. I didn't bring it with me. So is there a way to scroll through our agenda or our packet and get to the part where like at the very end, it has like the recommendation categories?
Is that implementation probably?
Yeah.
Let me
maybe like 134 leaves.
Oh, yeah, I'm telling John and Lisa. Sorry about that. It could be just a philosophical difference from like other times I've gone through this process as a park commissioner. Usually you want to be what we were told previously, is you want to be careful about, there's kind of a balance, so you want to be able to have it open-ended enough that if a grant opportunity comes, that you have some priorities outlined, but you don't want it to be so open-ended that everything's in there, because you gotta get your focus on things so that you can get things done, and 5 years isn't a super long period of time. So the categories that they had that are at the end didn't seem to focus on that kind of targets. They have the long-term, the short-term, whatever, but there's so many that I don't know how you pick between those categories. People are understanding what I'm saying. In the past, we'd always been told to have some very large primary targets, and then you got to leave enough room, because you never know if grant funding is going to come. You don't know what that grant funding might be available for. So that part was a little concerning to me, because I couldn't tell necessarily where our priorities are. And in 5 years, you don't have the ability to focus on everything. So it looked like there was a nice assessment done. It's a great inventory for things that we might want to do, but it didn't seem like it had the priority targets for what we'd want to do and where we channel our energy in. It's a great assessment. It looks like it's a great inventory. I'm not complaining about that part, but if we were to say, in 5 years, what do we hope to accomplish, give or take what might come up from a funding standpoint, like I couldn't tell where those priorities are.
And I think we discussed that at one of the final meetings when we were putting the draft together, of just almost the opposite of that, of trying not to hold ourselves specifically to what is high, what is low priority, but they're all priorities, and on the list to focus on. So it is a philosophical question, and one I bet, depending on what the board would like to do, you could go either way, but we did have initially, they had initially a box that kind of put a strong priority, high priority, low priority, but then we're like, are we also going to send a message of that some things we don't find as important as others, and then find backlash that way? Just with so many items on the list, it is going to be very tricky to get everything done, but
And honestly, John, it's not going to get done. I mean, let's just be honest with people. If we're not trying to do something that's going to give the wrong impression to people. 5 years is a very short period of time. We know from, I mean, I think I served 20 years on the Park Commission. The amount of money that becomes available, this is an odd time that we've been in the last 4 years. Money just doesn't come available in droves to get stuff done. So, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So that's my concern. I can appreciate that standpoint if that's a standpoint we're taking. I don't think we can take that standpoint as a way of reducing frustration that community members might have with us. Because when you have a bunch of priorities, it's always going to be whittled down to like where the leverage is for that priority. I mean, for instance, the state of Michigan decided that they would give us $5 million for court. They determined that for us, right? Like, there's $5 million that could be done in any other way. It could have been, if we looked at it big needs-wise, which we were originally looking for, improvements that needed to be here, improvements that needed to be there, but somebody else decided, look, this is what it's going to be for. So I guess that's my concern. I mean, I'm hopeful that we have a 5-year plan that we're going to be able to do something with, but then when we start to pick and choose without real firm priorities, because we're worried about making real firm priorities, it's still going to happen, but we've been less transparent about it, I guess, is what I think. This is just me talking out loud. It could be that we're going in a different direction. 20 years that I served there, I understand how difficult it is for funding and that you have to have a big picture plan for like what you're going to do. At one point, we focused on neighborhood parks. After we'd done that for a while, then we focused on like the bigger parks. So you got to have some direction that you're going, and we're not going to please everybody, but like, to me, it looked like we're trying to hit everything, and I think that's a little disingenuous, because we're not going to be able to do that in 5 years. Now, it kind of says, so if I'm looking at it and you guys want me to think that any of the stuff that we said long-term, that's not going to happen in this plan, okay, I think we've got to have a key or something that lets people know how we're going to approach that, because we want to take care of our parks. Our parks are very meaningful, even more so than ever after the pandemic, and it's a valuable asset that we have, but I feel like it's wide-based, and maybe it's just a philosophical, I'm only one person, but one person with a lot of experience serving on a park commission.
You do, and I'm just one I'm sorry, Heather.
I just want to add something that maybe could provide a little bit of clarity to that piece. Like, in the plan, it has the short, long-term, medium, and I don't disagree. Like, I like timelines, but I was, what do you do? But above those, like under, like page 143, if you scroll up just a little bit, at least back up north, it has like community action plan, but then it has ADA standards for accessibility, bathroom facilities, dog park, seasonal access, da-da-da. So like when I read that, and again, I was on the committee and did a lot of it, so I think I'm like very biased of what I'm reading because I understood how we got here. But I see those as the priorities for community parks. And then, down, but they're still very vague. So like, you have a fair point. I'm not trying to, say that it's wrong. But just when I read this, I see those top sort of bulleted things like ADA standards as those are priorities that we heard from people. And each section has a little thing like that. So that's the one for community parks. And then I think that neighborhood parks has a similar list. It's different, more like beautification stuff. So I don't know that addresses your concern, but I just wanted to point out that section. That helps.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Trustee.
Heather, also, didn't we do this at the community center? I think I came to one. There wasn't that many people there. And we had a couple, 250, with ourselves, and to address some of the issues. So I think this is why they put the high priorities on, we went to those meetings, there's just a group of people that still had high priorities listed. And I think they are listed. I think what maybe, and I'm just getting a feel with Trustee Swanson, I think what she's saying is that there still should be a high priority what we're going to work on in those 5 years. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to get clear. And I could see that too. But if that's the only thing we got to do, my question, I guess to the chair or whoever, can you not look at the resolution? And I guess if we need more time, so be it. And I think the process is that we have to vote it up or down, I believe. If we don't approve that resolution, they have to either amend their resolution and, we send it back to them. I've said on the board too. And then if the board doesn't agree, and we have to give a statement why we don't agree, and then they'll go back and work on it, I believe, and submit it again. Is that correct? I believe it's correct.
I'm not exactly sure.
Well,
But
what I'm saying is,
I hear
every time
you,
we send
yeah.
something here for approval, usually it was voted on. We never had to go back and readjust stuff. But I think it goes back to say that we,
The Park Commission, yeah.
yeah, we basically cannot approve it because we have some suggestions and would like for the Park Commission to look at it again. I believe that's the process. So, but if there's little things, if the commissioner says there should be stuff we want to set as priority, try to continue that priority stuff. We're continually working on it. That's an easy thing to fix to me.
Just to add, and as you said, I'm just one person. I just was on the committee as well. So I just, the discussion did go back and forth many ways because I know every community is going to do their priority list for their parks different. I think just the reason that the final decision was made to not put it in there, and if it so chooses that we do want to add that, then they can add that, and we'll go through that process. But it was just kind of came down to as well is that they all are a priority to be done to the park. Obviously, timeline will vary, and the projects will vary of what it can be added onto. But realistically, 5 years is not a long time in the grand scheme of things, but 5 years from now, we just don't know what's going to change and how the priorities are going to change. Pre-putting pickleball tennis court at Burns Park, their priority for the park might have been different than what it was after. After that, I know they came to board meetings as well as park commission meetings and had many strong feelings about that. So what they did for the last Parks and Rec master plan, their opinion have changed, at least when it came to, having parking and some of the features that go along with that, because once that changed, the priority changes. With all the projects we have planned for the parks, Fort Heritage, and you all know the list. Once those changes do happen to those parks, the residents' priority for what needs to be done after that might change as well. So I guess just the discussion kind of came down to is, one, not trying to show a priority over something just for the public if they disagreed, because we had a great response rate, but it's still, 900 out of 58,000. And people who chose not to put their voice in would probably in the future, as we do get community input for future projects. So it just was a way not to try to tie into things that, one, we might not achieve, or vice versa.
And I can appreciate that. The problem is we do business in a political environment. And so, especially when you have large discrepancies within the community. So when I say that, there's a great variance in who lives in the township and how you navigate the process. So if there's a political environment and you have some people who are better able to advocate for their needs, you have to be careful, because if you don't have our role is to make sure that we're applying treatment across the whole township. And so I get nervous when I hear we have to be so flexible, because what happens is the strongest voices who are more able to advocate for their needs may never get that taken care of. Because in reality, what we have to communicate, there's not an endless sum of money. So the hard work that we have a responsibility to do is to make sure that we are taking care of assets across the entire township, and we are going to make people unhappy. That's just part of the work we have. There's no way we're going to please everybody. But we have to make sure that we're navigating and taking care of the resources that we have in a way that is very forward-thinking and maintains those. And so that's when we leave things open-ended, and I can appreciate it's a philosophical change. It could just be, I'm old school, I was on the Park Commission for 20 years, and this changes the way we're doing business. But I'm always careful when we start to change the way we do business, are there unintended consequences? And if so, when I'm asked to approve it, then I'm agreeing with the acceptance of those unintended consequences, which I don't know enough, and I didn't have a whole long time to read the whole plan. I am concerned about that, because when everything's on the board, the ability for strong advocates to advocate for what they want to happen, and your neighborhood can't be anything stronger than you would want to do, right? Of course, every neighborhood wants to advocate for them. So then it becomes like, I don't really want to be in that kind of environment where we're making decisions based on the strongest voice in the room. I don't know that that's the best way for us to take care of the most top priority assets that the township has. So that's my concern. I'm not saying this as like, I know how hard this work is. I just know that once we say, this is it, this is what guides the work we do for 5 years. So we have to be really careful that philosophically, this is the direction we want to go with, because there will be unintended consequences by opening it so wide. Like having this as, these are things we need to be thinking about, these are the things that we, like an inventory of needs, but at some point it is the responsibility of the elected officials to boil all that down and then set some priorities so that when money does, like, look how hard it is right now for us to get the things done that we said we were going to do with the ARPA funding. Just the climate we have right now for getting big projects done. We still do not have Loonfeather completely closed out. And Loonfeather was a project prior to me being a trustee. This stuff does not work quickly. So the more fine-tuned we are, this is what this plan is supposed to be doing. This plan is supposed to say, all right, we get money, this is where we're going. We got money, this is a priority. In an environment that doesn't have people fighting over it, because there are resources at any given time are limited. So hard decisions have to be made. And maybe people don't think about that when they're elected to serve on a board or whatever, but that is our work. If we're doing our job well, we probably are going to have, at any given time, people who are unhappy with us. It just works that way. So my concern is, I don't know that this sets out what we want to do, and then what's going to keep it from becoming this political thing where the strongest advocates are going to get what happens in their area. Like, there's nothing people are more protective of their neighborhood and what their neighborhood needs. And if we had an endless sum of money, of course we'd want to do it all. But where are we going to prioritize any money that comes into the system? That's what this plan is supposed to do. It's supposed to help us prioritize when we get money, where that money is going to be spent. And then the hope is, long-term, if we do a good job of that, we will always be rotating it, taking care of the highest priorities. And because it's so slow, that's why we already have neighborhoods who say, well, nothing's been done in our park, when there has been a rotation of things.
No, I mean, I really appreciate the conversation and the knowledge. I mean, the last thing I want to do is come and, or even though it was not, have this process disrupt any longstanding, township operations. And again, maybe that's part of the bigger discussion. I just looked at it as that we've identified, and by we, with Beckett and Rader, with getting community input for the parks, the things that the community says they need. I just thought this year showed me that community input when it comes to doing this work is so valuable. Heard that earlier in the year, especially I'm sorry to keep picking on Burns, but that was the one that sticks out the most immediately. But mentioning in prior projects they'd not had the community input. And then to see the response when we, through the ARPA funding, had that meeting and the emails that came after, when we sat down with West Willow, the members who came for that community meeting, and just to see the input with the projects moving forward to get that so their voice is still heard. So what is decided, 4 years prior doesn't lead, but it has everything that is needed, and we can continue the conversation with board approval of what to move forward with on that list, because that was when the discussion happened, what made sense. But if we want to have a priority box and set it, then it can be added. And again, I think just kind of comes down to what is preferred and what is best for the residents and for this tool to be used for MDNR funding.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to avoid, John. And if it sounds like I'm being really critical, I'm just trying to save us from the problems that we're going to incur. So if we don't have some priorities, what's going to happen is money comes in, we want the board to make a decision, the room will be packed with certain neighborhoods, it won't be packed with everybody. And so if we're always going to be listening to the strongest voice in the room, we're not going to be taking good care of the community, from my perspective. So like, easy thing to say is, okay, let's say we're given $5 million from the state. What are we going to do? This plan should let us know, here's where we're gonna, it shouldn't be come back and then say, okay, we got this money from the state, what are we gonna do? We should already know from our plan where the priorities are. And maybe I'm one person and you have a general idea, but it's just going to I think it's going to create more strife in the community if we don't have some things set aside based on what we think we know, like what the ages of things are. Like we have to have something that's going to help us that goes with I want public input. We're a community of 55,000 people. Like 900 is very helpful, and it's a large number because I think that's the largest number that ever came to public stuff when I was working it, but it's 900. There's 55,000 people that live here that we're trying to maintain assets for, we're trying to set things up, and so I can't tell from the plan. I can tell what needs to be done in every park. It's a fabulous inventory. A lot of work has been done. But if a large sum of money comes in, what are we planning on? Like, what would we do if that? I can't tell from the plan what would happen. If $5 million came in our hands, what would we do?
Madam Chair, are you done? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Madam Chair and John, so I don't know if it says in there that we will continue to try to reach out for grants to continue to enhance our parks. That would be a plus, because we know as the money comes, it's helpful to us. The dog park, that's been there for I don't know how long.
The entire time.
And I think you have it listed, Community Park Action Plan. Maybe they used the wrong wording or whatever, but it's there. We've been trying to get a dog park forever. Some of the other stuff is there that I know, sitting in that meeting, these people talked about. So I don't know if it's title right or whatever, but I think the community plan is there. So as the money come, I will hope that the park committee will take that money and use it as an enhancement to some of the things they have listed. So I don't know if the wording's right or not, but as Debbie knows, dog park has been number one. People have been asked of a dog park forever. So if we had something in the master plan, just an indication, hey, we are still trying to get grants to continue to assist us to enhance our parks. And with those grants, hopefully some of those ideals will happen. Something of that sort. That's just my thought.
So we have agreed that we're going to have the public hearing, and then we'll just have it on the next agenda in 2024 to make sure that we get it approved by February 1st. When will the changes go to The Park Commission.
January 8th.
So you want us to go over them all at the public hearing?
If it's better to set up a separate meeting, a special meeting, or,
Well, no, I'm
know,
just
I guess
asking
what-
procedure, you know how I am. I'm trying to figure out procedurally how to do.
Liz might have some,
Yeah.
like I had to ask her procedurally because she does these, so maybe when she's here, we could just get clarification on
yeah.
the best.
John, is February 1st the deadline? Because I heard end of February earlier.
No, it's February 1st.
Sorry, Stan, that was my fault.
Because I'm not sure I can give you all of the questions I have tonight.
Which, if you can't tonight, if it doesn't go to the Park Commission till the 8th of January, there's time to email or correspond or again, set up a separate meeting. But the February 1st is a hard deadline because our current plan does expire January 30th. And we have to have one on file.
Well, I would just say I hear Trustee Swanson and I agree with her. 900 is a great number, but as we sat down here and did the math, just roughly, it's less than 2% of the population of the township. So I, too, would like to see a plan that lays out not necessarily what we want the most, but what do we need to take care of first, and there should be an orderly fashion. What's critical and what's not. That should be, I think, the deciding factor where money goes is before you lose something, because we wanted this, we lost this. So
Something that I picked up when you reviewed and ranked all the parks, like you visited them and ranked them accessibility, overall condition, and recommendation. So accessibility would probably be a good goal for all of, I'm thinking, I don't know. And that would, which means a different surface, is that right? Or underneath the mulch, instead of mulch, you use a different.
No, I think accessibility just means by walkability, by drivability, access to amenities, and the ability for people to get to and from. And then potentially ADA accessibility as well as part of the scoring.
Because I know some parks have a surface on it that you don't have to mow or anything. It's, I don't know
Yeah,
the
like the-
term, I'm sorry.
Pour in place.
Pour in
Yeah.
place. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make it more accessible? But you're saying that really doesn't, that's not what.
With their score, it was for people having access to the park.
Okay.
And
All right, so see, I interpreted that wrong.
so in my question then would be to the board when it comes to priority list, obviously the input they got was from the input meetings and from what residents submitted. Would that be something that they would use the priority on how the submissions were given, or would that be something that would be designated elsewhere?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to add a couple things. One is that I just learned this, but it doesn't only have to be the pour in place to be accessible. There's different types of mediums that you can use, like mulch or gravel, that can still be ADA accessible. I just learned that from someone at Spicer I can't remember their names. And then I also wanted to point out that our last Park and Rec Master Plan that was done by Carlisle Wortman, there were 113 total responses collected. So to go from 113 to over 900, I thought was a huge success. And then lastly, I just wanted to, speak for myself. And I know that when we were on the ARPA committee before, we had to sort of make a decision, we did look back to this Park and Rec Master Plan for some of those priorities. And we did list out in this current plan the ARPA projects that touched all those different parks, like West Willow Park, Burns Park, Lakeside. So, and the community center, if you mapped all of those out, they were well distributed, and I thought that we pulled those from our previous plan.
There was difficulty the last time getting it posted on, using the internet to collect
Yeah.
feedback. So it's a little hard to compare that when this one was up for a good long time, and we extended it for a good long time so that people could give feedback online.
Yeah.
So
One of
it's
the-
definitely bigger.
One of the main reasons that the committee that selected this group, like, we interviewed the previous committee as well, and I gave this feedback to Ben Carlisle, and I love him and love Carla Wortman, they're great. But the person that oversees their Parks and Rec master plan really kind of like, I don't know, like belittled, I don't know if that's the right word, just diminished the importance of statistically significant surveys. And that, to me, was like a huge guiding factor of kind of why I felt so strongly about using a different company. Just for some backstory. That's all. No more comments.
I like it's just new information and new presentation. I like it. Yeah, I really do. I mean, there's some questions just because we haven't had a conversation about it, but I thought it was well done, and it's just different, and that's okay, right? Sometimes different is okay. And then as far as priorities, we have to figure that out. Or
I welcome the feedback and the conversation
Park
when
Commission can-
Liz gets here, because it's supposed to be a tool for us, for the public, and for grant funding. So
Yeah.
whatever makes that voice best to the MDNR and other agencies,
And
whatever we gotta
maybe the professional person who will come here will explain to us that if you're broader, then it allows you to apply for more, but how do we make the priorities? Yeah, it's just different. I'm not saying, but there's a lot of, like, a mini park is a neighborhood park. Those were terms that I wasn't familiar with. That was a new term, mini park. And it's really a neighborhood park, correct?
Yeah, I think they did it by geographic size and accessibility.
I know they did, but really, and I'm not sure, like trees, when they said, plant more trees, which we do every year, but do they count the canopy of trees in subdivisions? Because we require trees on every lot. And I didn't know, they do? Okay. I was trying to see that canopy, if does it include canopy then? Okay, and then subdivisions.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. I liked it. Just some suggestions. So it's 6:32.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, John, very much, and to the committee who brought this forward. We have the fiscal year budget is under new business. So we've had a lot of meetings on it. We had the public hearing. This is just to adopt it. Is there questions or comments on that? We have the annual exemption that comes from HR as set forth in Public Act 1552, which is a publicly funded health insurance contribution act. So people who don't have a hard cap, then we have to adopt this to waive the hard cap. We do it every year. The hard cap is what was required by the state law, which was $6,000 for each employee. And we actually put that on a card, so we waive that. And there's a certain amount per family, and single, double, and family, that's also part of it. Is there questions on that? We do this every year. So single coverage is $600 annually, two-person is $1,200, and family is $1,800. Questions or comments? Next, we have the agreement with OHM for overseeing the construction services for the Hewitt Street Fire Station interior and exterior ceiling improvements. The chief is here. Do you have questions? Chief, would you like? How this came about would be a good idea. leaky roofs.
Good evening, everyone. Just as part of the formality of getting OHM out there with the architect to take a look at some of the construction repairs that need to be done to that particular fire station. Over the years, it had a significant roof leak, and there were some fixes that were tried and failed that they had found out before my time. So it was brought to my attention shortly after I became the chief here to have some ideas brought forward for some repairs. Had several contractors out just looking at it, and then we were going to get with the contractor, the architect, I should say, to come out and oversee this project. It's basically the main ceiling where the truck set. A couple windows needs to be replacement. The insulation that's above that, where it became weak from the rain, needs to be replaced as well. Some of the contractors we worked with in the past that the township has used had expressed some interest in doing the work. So once we do this, it'll be put on mitten for the final verdict or the final cost, and then I'll be back with it in front of you folks when I get that. Probably allow it 2 weeks for them to look at the project, the scope of it, and then come in and give us their estimate of what needs to be done. And the gentleman, one of the architects, is supposed to be here around 7 or so. If you have any technical questions for him that I can't answer for you, either one of us would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Chief.
Sure, absolutely.
Questions or comments?
Thank you.
We have the agreement with the Washington County Road Commission for the installation of a pedestrian crossing at it's Holmes, H-O-L, and Peabody Street in the amount of $36,321.50, which is budgeted. The Metro Act. That's number 5 on the agenda.
Madam Chair, I can just speak to the Peabody thing. I was looking for it in my packet too. This is actually something that came about. A resident who lives on this road contacted us about what was her best options. We put her in touch with the Washington County Road Commission, and they did a study at Holmes Road in Peabody. There is a school as well as a bunch of multifamily apartment complexes in that area, and they found that it was warranted. So we've done another one of these before, most recently at Huron River Drive, but it's not installed yet. So the other one that I can think of is on Textile by Ford Heritage Park.
Is it in the packet? Okay, all right, I couldn't find it, but that doesn't.
We'll get that updated. Apologies for that.
Now the Metro Act for AT&T.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I can speak to this too. We were contacted by someone who works for AT&T. This is an extension of a Metro Act agreement that goes back several years. We did request a couple things to see if we could, have notice of when they would be working on them, as well as someone to contact if any residents had questions or concerns. Their response was sent to everyone today. I forwarded on to all of you. They were unable to amend the contract and stated it's just an extension, but did provide us with, some sort of contacts for AT&T. And that was sent to you all, I think, earlier today sometime.
So the maintenance of the infrastructure, the panels was one, and notifying the township when they're working in neighborhoods, because they come in neighborhoods and totally destroy like yards and do not tell us. So we get all the phone calls and we're trying to hunt it down. And even though that person said that, we can't amend the agreement, I did ask Mr. Winters if we could add it to it or send it in a letter that specifically requests it, because I'm not sure why we can't amend the agreement. I mean, I understand what she said to you and to us, but it's a problem. Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I don't want to do anything that would make it hard for our community members who have AT&T service to have AT&T service. But I have a lot of issues with, I'm not sure what this does, but I know, I'm going to pass some pictures to you guys, and this is, thank you, Elizabeth, for making copies. I don't know why this is my pet peeve, but when I drive around our community and I see these boxes look the way they do, I am beyond frustrated. And thanks to Elizabeth and Brenda, we have some that have been repaired, but for somebody to tell us that we don't have any say in this, and then they leave boxes that look like this for days. I don't even have the worst one, Elizabeth. I couldn't find the one that was the first one that we started on over on Russellville, because I think when we changed emails and my phone's not letting me send stuff, so I will, because that one is just floors me, that it laid on the floor, on the ground for months. And so I now make it my mission when I see it to take pictures of them and then send them to Elizabeth, who then has, and Elizabeth and Brenda, they contact AT&T, and then it takes, they're getting better at fixing them, but it takes a long time. Like, there's no way this is a functional utility box for our residents to be paying for service that looks like that. And so I don't have enough, they just want to go do the work and then they don't want to maintain it. I guess I'm having a hard time understanding what the message is to our community when this is what these boxes look like. So on the ones on the bottom, on the second page, I think, if this is the first page, with this one on it, the one at the bottom of the second page, that page is Ellsworth Road. That has been reported for more than a month or longer. So in the rain, in the elements, like, I get that I want them to be able to serve our residents so they have choice, but it's more than come and put it in. You need to make sure that this is, to me, that looks like something that's unnecessary if it can sit like that for months. I don't know what kind of service people are going to get out of that kind of utility box. And I couldn't get, I'll get the other pictures sent to you guys. For some reason, my phone is not letting me send media. But the one over on Russell Street was the first one I discovered that I drove by going to work for more than a year. Even with us reporting it, the box was like parts were laying on the ground. So being a good partner with the community is not, our community deserves better than this. So I don't know what this is, but I'm uncomfortable giving them permission to do stuff if this is what if this is going to be the end result. And I don't want to do anything that creates a hardship for people with their AT&T service. I am advocating for them to do the responsible thing as an entity that's doing business in our community and to make sure that they are taking care of the things. I mean, I don't even know if that's dangerous. You got kids riding bikes and stuff, like, I don't know. Is that electrical? Is that, I'm not an expert in any way that way, but I guess I'm going to have more information on what exactly they're thinking they're going to do and what expectation can we have that they will be the people monitoring their property instead of me driving around, taking pictures, sending it to Elizabeth having to get repeated ask for help. And I can leave pictures up there for people to look at if there's anybody who wants to see those pictures, because it's absurd.
So I didn't know if it was a state act or a federal act or both. I don't know which oversees it. So we can let our state representatives know and our federal elected representatives know as well. Or we can just, put it in a letter that we want to make sure that they notify the township. They notify the road commission, I guess, when they pull a permit. But they don't have to notify the township, so when residents are, and we would put it out, we would probably just put a blast out and let people know that AT&T is working in this area. If you have any questions, here's the contact information, but we never, ever are informed on when they're in the township until there's an issue. And then the repair and maintenance. So at first, we were trying to go through ordinance to get it. And it was better just to talk to AT&T directly, so. But I agree there's a problem, I just don't know, I don't know how to fix it. Mr. Winters, did you have an opportunity to review it?
I think, again, this is just an extension of what's probably goes back maybe 20 years. And I do think right now that, as I recall, the Public Service Commission may have jurisdiction some of these issues. And looking at the photographs, I know that they have a duty to maintain that right of way, and they can't just leave these cables and wires lying around. So at a minimum, there's got to be some type of an accountability in regards to what they're doing or not doing. And I think a complaint should be filed with the Public Service Commission, and I think you should get all the different photographs together, as well as maybe request a meeting. I just saw an email late this afternoon from, I think, a person on behalf of AT&T, and I had a chance to really dive into that email beyond just knowing that one was sent. And there were some contact numbers that she provided. But it sounds like right now there's more of a concern about their compliance history in regards to what they're doing in the right-of-ways. So, being the last week of the Township Board being open, at a minimum, I think you need to at least try and schedule a meeting with this person. And we need to share this information with the, I believe, the Public Service Commission.
So approve it with the understanding we're going to do that?
Well, I would have maybe have serious objections or complaints that would be attached to whatever approval you do, because this is not good. And this may be just a small sample of what's going on in the right away.
And I'm thinking out loud, the permit for AT&T comes from the road commission. So maybe we can include them as well and let them know that they have a permit for this, and I'm sure they get revenue from it as well, but they need to make sure they're in compliance.
So what do they want from us? They want permission
You want to
go put things in the right of way. Is that what they're asking us to do? And we have a long-standing contract. If there's a law, we might not even, why do they even have to come to us? Do we have to give them permission?
Yeah, as I recall, back in 2002, they passed these bills with the intent to try and cut through the so-called red tape in obtaining and installing the high-speed internet, optics, fiber optics, etc. And I think that initially as I recall, we actually hired outside counsel to negotiate this to begin with, because it was a very technical and specialized area. And there was an agreement that was entered into. Then there's been periodic extensions every 5 years. But at the same time, I think they have obligations and responsibilities. And from what I'm looking at right now, they're obviously not doing what they should be doing if they're leaving this in the right of way.
I guess my question is, why is this like that? I mean, it's a job unfinished, and this is unacceptable, really. I just don't get it. Why would they not put the, say, wires back in the box? I don't understand. And and if it's throughout the township, then there is a problem, because it not only does it look dangerous, but it just looks disrespectful. It's unacceptable. Whatever we need to do to get this done.
like, that doesn't even look like high speed. I mean, if that's high speed, I mean, there's no infrastructure there. It just looks like people think that they can do things in Ypsilanti Township.
Yep.
That, I mean, I would encourage people, you'll start noticing it now. I don't see it look like this in other areas. So I don't know if they're being tampered with. I don't know if this is no longer useful, so it's just been left there because they've got other ways of doing it. I just don't know. I wish someone would come and tell us, like, what is this? Because I have no explanation for our residents as to why anything would look like this in our community. Like, there's a few, the one that was over by Rossonville Road that's laying on the ground. I mean, there's certain places where you can just see they're located in places where vehicles and stuff are hitting things. And I just can't imagine that any service that anybody's being provided from this particular utility would in any way, shape, or form be high quality, and that's not fair. I mean, cable costs a lot, and our residents deserve to have the same level of service and upkeep, and it isn't just about coming into our space. Sounds like they wanted laws passed to make it easier for them to come into our space, and then there's no good stewardship for that once they come here. That's just unacceptable. So I don't know in what way. I don't want to make it harder for people to have AT&T. That's not my goal. But
Want to make it harder.
as other people have already said, this you can't come do this in Ypsi Township.
Well,
We have to send a clear message. No, this cannot be the case. And we have our staff spending valuable time trying to get it taken care of.
this,
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Brenda, because they've done a really good job at that, but that's not our responsibility to be hunting people down to fix things.
so I fully agree. This looks horrible. It looks like a bird's nest, but I mean, it's bad. But I think what Trustee Newman is saying, and folks here can't see what we're looking at, but I mean, this looks, yeah. But what I'm concerned about is like kids, kids out in the neighborhood playing around, just doing what kids do. I mean, they could very easily get caught up in this, and who knows what I would be concerned about, someone being electrocuted. I have no idea what power is going through those cords, and it just does not look like there's any kind of protective barrier, and I think that could be a very minimum possibility of danger. It could be worse than that, to be honest. So, yeah, and the fact that they feel as though they can come into our community and leave something like this, I would ask them directly, would you do this in Ann Arbor? Is this how you wouldn't leave things like that there? So don't come over here and do that to us. So treat us with the exact same respect as you will every other community.
I'm working to get the ones that go around Russell because there's a large hub there that sat for almost 2 years, like really bad. They're clearly marked danger, caution, clearly marked. And so I can't, for some reason, my phone I can't get those pictures, but I will get those to you because that points the point of danger even more so because there's very large, I'm not an expert, they're laying on the ground, but clearly marked, caution, be careful.
All right, if we could take a short break, it's 6:53, and the meeting will start at 7.